Thursday, the 7th of February. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the program. This is your Business Morning live here on Channels Television. I am Bosin Namafai. We're live to you from Lagos, Nigeria's financial epicenter. Let's get the show started. The Nigerian authorities has just unveiled a new federal competition and consumer protection law, which President Buhari signed late Wednesday afternoon. So the new bill will be looking to promote consumer confidence, choice, and fair pricing. It's been a long walk for Nigeria to get an anti-competition, or what you call antitrust, if you want to use other terminologies around the world to describe the new law. According to the Consumer Protection Council, the CPC, the new law will deepen the framework for encouraging and supporting small and medium-scale businesses in Nigeria by ensuring a playing field that eliminates entry barriers and operational obstacles. According to the Director General of the CPC, Babatunde Irukera, he says his agency will now engage every tool and provision of the new law signed by Mr. President and any other enactment for consumer protection, fair treatment, and respect for local consumers. And that's the big story on our business street. So we'll talk about that in the days ahead. Meantime, the key question is, what exactly do Nigeria Labour Congress really want? First, the Nigeria Labour Congress says it opposes any plans by the federal government to privatize or sell down on assets in public enterprises, as BPE outlined some concessions and privatization of some companies for the 2019 period. And of course, you've seen SACOL, PLC, initial public offering concluded, and the plan to list it on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Now, the NLC, in the last couple of days, says the government should bid goodbye to any idea, or should scrap the idea of any privatization or sell down of any assets of government in public enterprises. Number two, the NLC is also asking for an amendment to Nigeria's income tax law that will exclude the new minimum wage of 30,000 naira from taxable income. The Nigerian Labour Congress is asking the Federal Inland Revenue Service under Babatunde Fowler to remove the new 30,000 naira from income tax, because they said the new agreed basic salary is a compromised minimum wage, is so low and should not be taxed by the Federal Inland Revenue Service. Labour says the new agreed basic salary is a compromised minimum wage and so should not be taxed. Let's move on to what we have on our calendar. Next week is going to be very busy. Of course, you know that already, but we just want to bring everyone up to speed. Countdown to February 26th. February 2016, Presidential Poll Statistics Office says it will release fourth quarter GDP data and report 8:30 in the morning on Tuesday the 12th, and then on the 15th, the January Consumer Price Index and inflation data. That will be on Friday. So Tuesday and Friday next week will be very busy. And of course, as we are digesting the inflation data on Friday, then the presidential election on Saturday, the 16th of February. That's on our calendar for next week. Meantime, today, the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Okechukwu Enenama, is already speaking in downtown Lagos at the Presidential Enabling Business Council, or PEBEC, stakeholders meeting. The first in 2019 to discuss the new direction for the new year on the basis of the approved policy focus for PEBEC by the Vice President last November. The Honorable Minister is currently speaking, says there are a lot of things being done under the enabling business environment that the business community are not aware of. So it's bringing everyone to speed, even as we speak live here on Channels Television. Meantime, the head of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Mary Udok, is speaking at the NSE over-the-counter breakfast interface with companies and market institutions. The idea is to get more companies and institutions to benefit from the over-the-counter unlisted securities market platform. That's what the NSE is doing bright and early in the new year, to get more companies and institutions to become part of that environment, of that platform. That's what Bola Jomale and the rest of his team are doing right now as we speak. Temple Ashaju, our business correspondent, is live to us at the Nigerian Stock Exchange, where we saw a bit of a gentle less than 0.2% yesterday, thanks to banks and consumer goods. The over-the-counter market was a little bit tired. Fixed income remained a little bit mixed because the central bank zero tolerance for liquidity overhang is taking overnight money north of 20%. But let's start with equities. Temple is down there. Temple, good morning. It's good to have you on the program. Bring us up to speed about on Wednesday's trading session.
Good morning, Bosin. Thanks for these. Well, we're up yesterday again, the fourth consecutive time so far in terms of trading sessions. We've been seeing gains now, fourth consecutive time in a row. That's what we saw yesterday, up some 48.23 absolute points yesterday, representing some 0.16% rise in the indices. We've seen month-to-date gains now rising to some 0.87%, while the year-to-date was moderated yesterday, moderated some 2.09% basically. Investors went bargain hunting yesterday on medium caps and the highly capitalized stocks yesterday. Across board, we saw a bit of increase on some of those names. But if you look at the investor sentiment measured by the market breadth, there was a bit of parity there, not so much. We saw 19 gainers versus 17 losers in the market. Tells you that the gap is not so much. So, Land Africa was the topmost gainer yesterday, 9% gains, and Custodian from the insurance segment of the market dipped some 8.82% yesterday. We saw that, of course, FBN Holdings was the top trader, most actively traded yesterday in terms of top trades there. Did down in share price by some 0.67%, but in total did some 89 million units of shares valued at 660 million naira. If you look at the activity level, we had volume yesterday at 359.09 million units of shares. That was what was done in totality of the volume of transactions in the market, and that was done for a value of 4.82 billion naira in 3,319 deals. That's a huge increment over what was done in the preceding trading session. Well, we know that the equity capitalization also added some 17.99 billion naira in yesterday, basically. But if you look at the sectoral performances, Bosin talked about the banks and, of course, the consumer goods that were able to help push up the indices yesterday. We know that Guarantee Trust Bank under the banking name was up yesterday, 1.76%. FCMB also rose some 0.48%. Sterling Bank also did some 0.43%. Put together, they were able to push up the banking indices yesterday, which ended some 0.57%. If you look at the consumer goods segment, which was the best performing segment of the market yesterday, Dangote Flour did help that segment, rose some 4.96%. Nestle, which is a heavyweight in the market, also rose some 2.28%. Flour Mill did some 2.43%, and of course Dangote Sugar again now did some 0.74%. Dangote Sugar and Dangote Flour, of course, we all know they come from the same umbrella, and that these were the key stocks that were able to push up the consumer goods segment of the market. Insurance, on account of the gains we saw on ICO Insurance that rose some 6.06%, was also positive yesterday. But if you look at the industrial goods and, of course, the oil and gas segment of the market, these are the two key sectors that dragged a little bit yesterday, but they were unable to outperform the market. Industrial goods segment, on account of the losses we saw on WAPCO, some 2.02% dip in WAPCO, which just concluded some 90 billion naira rights issue, and of course that was the second rights issue that they are carrying out in a year. We know that investors will continue to watch that space to see how they can, quickly get some profits by way of when capital appreciation settles, they can quickly edge out. Dangote Cement yesterday was also down 0.79%, but thankfully didn't do anything negative to the indices there. Oil and gas, on account of the only movement we saw in the energy stocks, that's O&O, which dipped by 1%, was down yesterday, 0.13%. That's how oil and gas segment of the market ended yesterday. Let's move on to the NSE OTC, which is the unlisted securities market. We've got the USI at 744.61 points. It was flat yesterday, albeit some tradings that we saw. We saw some volume, some 372,920 units of shares transacted on that particular market yesterday, and came in with a value of some 5.16 million naira, and that was done in just 7 deals. We saw trading on a few of the companies there out of the 39 securities that are tradable on the system. And like Bosun said earlier, we saw that we know that NSE will be giving some information to the investing public today as it meets with the regulators and other players in the market. Just before we round off, we'll quickly look at the bonds market, where we saw a bit of slightly bullish sentiment yesterday. Little flows from select maturities yesterday. Market marks time ahead of the election, the national election that is coming, and of course the fact that there's a bond auction coming up very soon in this month. We saw average yield narrowing 3 basis points to 14.9% yesterday, even though we saw buy sentiment spreading across the short and the mid end of the curve. If you look at February 2028 there, it was priced higher at 94 naira 90 kobo as opposed to 94 naira 35 kobo that we had it before. But at the treasury bills market yesterday, like Bosun also hinted earlier, we've got a bit of an OMO transaction there, or OMO auction by the CBN yesterday, some 66.02 billion naira done yesterday. And eventually, we saw that eventually narrowed the system liquidity yesterday, where we saw a bit of a bearish outing in treasury bills at the secondary side of the market. Yields at the mid end of the curve and, of course, the long end of the curve both had to expand so that investors can see how that will be more attractive for them. But there was a bit of sell-off on the 99-day to maturity and a couple of other securities there, Bosun.